That's good idea.
But
Make your escape when you can. Cheers. I'll
Cheers.
lock it up in the room.
Right.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Right, lady and gentlemen, I'll just introduce David Monswike from Turner and Townsend, who's going to talk to us about project management and BIM, as you say. Over to you, David.
Hi, thanks for asking me to come along today, and thanks to Dave for giving us the opportunity. Any of you from project management backgrounds? I'll take from the blank expression, that means that you're not. No, that's good, because I'll tell you what project management is, you see, and project managers glaze over at that point. What I'm going to try and talk about a little bit today, well, I'm going to run through, what I'll do is first I'll tell you who I am. That's probably a better way of doing it. My name's Dave Monswike, as Dave has just pointed out. I'm an associate with Turner and Townsend, and we are an independent project management and cost management consultancy, amongst other things. Quite big, 3,000 staff worldwide, like £300 million turnover, something like that. I should get shot for not knowing the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm not entirely bar-coded like the rest of them. Because of that, because of the fact that we do deal with project management and cost management, and because of the fact that we are independent, and one of the things we don't do is design. And that sounds a bit strange me coming to talk to you today about this kind of thing, but we don't design. We specifically don't do it. There's a couple of little divisions of our company that do some design work, but we're at the end of the marketplace where actually we don't hold insurance to design, we don't wish to do it, and we don't need to do it. And we're an independent consultancy, so we don't have the backup of a design house to help us with the more complex BIM questions. So part of what I want to talk about is a little bit about our journey and what we've been doing to bring ourselves up to speed. But main things I want to run through really, try and explain to you what a project actually is, which is a bit of a strange concept. And I'll talk about that. I'll talk about bathrooms, because bathrooms are fun, and they're easy to understand. I'll talk about the idea of what, the bathroom conundrum, what is bathrooms all about. But the main crux of what I want to talk about a lot is actually making decisions. How we use tools and the way that we use process to help clients make decisions in complex environments. Construction is one of the most complex environments that a client will make a decision in. And they employ professionals like ourselves, and like yourselves as well, to help navigate them through that decision matrix, or that decision maze. So I want to talk a little bit about the utility of information, rather than the idea of actually producing information, but how that can actually be utilised, and some of the ways academically we can start analysing what utility of information actually means. And I think that's probably a discussion point at the end. Some of the things, a lot of this is going to be asking you guys questions that we're going to talk about at the end, rather than telling you how it is. Because in an MSc, it's a lot about you forming your own opinions and challenging what I'm telling you. So I think that's quite important. And the hoary old subject, causes of project failure. Why do projects fail? And why does BIM either make a difference to projects failing or not failing? And what's the difference there? I'll try and talk a bit about that. Projects are interesting things. Project Management Institute defines a project in this way. The key words it's talking about there are the idea of something being temporary to create a unique product or service they talk about. Unique means that product or service is very different in distinguishing from other products and services within an organisation. It's the fact that you're not actually, it's a differentiation between that and business as usual within an organisation. That's something I'll touch on. It's a very important distinction around projects. It's something a lot of project managers don't understand. I think you guys who are in the change business, as design managers or as, in that design end, you need to understand this. It's a really important concept. Projects are defined by the fact they're temporary and have boundaries and outcomes. If it's not a temporary thing, it's not a project. It's day to day. It's what you do for normal. Management is a completely different thing, and this is where the idea of project and management cause so many problems. Management is transactional. Management promotes the status quo. The whole idea of management is to get things done within an organisation through people. It's not about change. Seth Godin said that we're surrounded by people who are busy getting their ducks in a row, waiting for the right moment to do things. Getting ducks in a row is a really good thing to do, but deciding what you're going to do with the duck is a far more important issue. Project management is about change. It's not about management. Odd concepts. Projects are the opposite of consistency. They're anarchy to the establishment. They're a different sort of management. You are managing anarchy in an organisation when you change things. You're not managing the status quo of a process. So I keep banging on about this all the way through. When I was teaching project management, I bang on about this a lot. But really important point. Change is critical. Change is the reason why projects are temporary endeavour. Sponsors of projects apply change for a reason. A very specific thing there again. Sponsor of a project, somebody wants to change something. And you guys who work in the built environment, the reason why somebody's employed you is because they want to change something. They usually want to change something physical. But through that physical change, they may also want to change other things. They need to disrupt the status quo. That's what a project is all about. Change. Motive for change could be anything. Could be perceived shortage of funds, need to improve efficiency, changing patterns of demand, social pressure, technological advances. How many of you are architects? Any of you from an architectural background? Even better.
Technologists.
Well, I can be nasty about architects if you're a technologist.
We look over the architects?
No.
No?
Paddy's the distance easy art.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
So, you'll watch that now. Yeah, about, a lot of the change that we do in the built environment is about affecting social change. That's not necessarily a measurable change. It might not necessarily be something that can be easily packaged up, as me with my QS background in saying achieving X cost per square metre or X process improvement. There's other things around it. With management responsibility as a project manager, you have to respond to change. If you do it successfully, an organisation will prosper, or a service will prosper. If you don't, you decline. Simple as. When was the last time you, very successful company, Brother, make printers? When was the last time you saw a typewriter?
In a photo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
Their
photo.
division,
Photo thing.
their division makes typewriters, stopped making typewriters about 5 or 6 years ago and completely disappeared. Because there's no requirement to. Standalone word processing devices now no longer made. It's about change, and this kind of change and this constant moving applies to both public and voluntary sectors and private business sectors. This is not unique to one or the other. Everything we think about, everything we do is about change in project management, not about management. Decisions are made within organisations to move from where it is now to where you need to be. This organisation, Northumbria, makes changes quite regularly. We, as an organisation within Northumbria, change structure, change shape, change people, change things, change courses, change outputs, to keep moving and committing those resources to get you to a place where you want to be. The vehicle that we use to get us from here to there, today to tomorrow, is project management. It's a project. Process for ensuring that that change moves and transfers itself is called project management. In construction, we fall into a big trap of thinking of business as usual as projects. It isn't. Our business as usual is facilitation of the projects that others are understanding or undertaking. A really important distinction. We don't make decisions. I work for a large project management firm. I don't make any decisions. You guys all work for either architectural practices or engineering practices or whatever. Again, you don't make any decisions whatsoever. What you do is you provide recommendations and information to allow the client to make a decision. At no point will you make a decision. And as a project manager, especially in a built environment, that's a really important distinction to make. You never make a choice yourself. You throw the balls up in the air for somebody else to hit, i.e. the client, project sponsor, depending on how it's structured. And as long as you remember that, would be okay in project management, as long as you remember that you're not the decision maker. Unless, of course, you find yourself as a decision maker. And if you find yourself as a decision maker, the first decision you should make is to hire a project manager to do all the crap for you. So that's the important thing. So I'll ask you guys a question now. We're in the bathroom conundrum. If you wanted a new bathroom, how would you do it? What process would you go through to get a new bathroom? That's not my bathroom. I'd probably quite like it to be my bathroom. That would indicate I live in a bigger house. But I'll ask you guys, what do you reckon? If you want a new bathroom, what would you do?
I'd probably look at pictures or something like that to decide what I wanted.
Yeah, so you start making some decisions around what you want. You look at some images. What else might you do?
A lot of reasons why I want a new bathroom.
Yeah, why do I need a new bathroom? What does it look like? What else would you do?
Cost it up as well.
How much is it going to cost me to do the bathroom? What else might you consider?
How it's done.
Yeah, process, how it's taken. All valid things to think about with a new bathroom. I mean, I made a very simple list. Firstly, if you're my wife, the answer to the top question is self-evident. I could install a bathroom every week. But if you're like me and you've got a background in quantity surveying and project management, my metrics of bathroom replacement are rather different. I don't look at it in that way. Make a plan. First thing I do I need a new bathroom? My view is no. If I flush the thing and everything disappears, I am content with the functionality of the bathroom. That's beyond that, I don't care. My wife has a very different view about all of this. But I'd make a plan. Project manager and me immediately makes a plan. Budget. I'll refer you to my earlier wife comment. Who decides on the budget in our house? It's her, and then I try and figure out how to deal with that. Shopping around, deciding which one to buy, decide who's going to do the work, making sure they do it, keeping some invoices, keeping the information that I need. Basically what you've got here is you've got a construction project in micro. It's a plan, do, review cycle. Going through it, planning what I'm going to do, doing it, reviewing that someone has done it, making sure it's happened, gathering the information and then using that for onward facilities management so I know where I bought my toilet pan for so I can get the right sort of ball cock float thing when it goes wrong. Perfectly normal. Bread and butter work. Easy that, bit of FM at the end, bread and butter work, bit of change in the old bathroom. Fantastic. That's a successful project outcome.
Might be.
Totally successful project outcome, looking at it. Bathroom's new. It is, new, it's all new. Got it from a supplier. It's all great. Secured a good price in the market. Surprising for a bathroom of this quality, I managed to get it so cheap, I don't know why. Works carried out to a high standard, it's been installed properly. Brilliant, it all works, you know, turn the taps and water comes out and goes away again. Installed on time and budget. Successful project outcome. Wife won't stop crying, can't have anything to do with this. As far as I'm concerned, this is a successful project outcome. And the reason why that's a successful project outcome is because decisions were made in order to get there. But they weren't necessarily the right decisions made to get to the outcome that was originally decided upon. I've still achieved everything I need to achieve as a project manager. I've delivered my outcome to the client. It does what the stated brief states.
Just curiosity, is that a cantilever bath?
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautiful. Yeah, it sits on a plinth underneath.
I was going to say if it's just
It's a
freezing.
Totally cantilevered.
It was probably the worst bathroom picture I could find on the net to illustrate the point.
Oh, we all thought it was yours.
It is now. I've just fitted it. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
Successful.
Successful, exactly. The real concept I want to get across to you about project management is that project management processes simply allow decisions to be made by the decision maker within a set framework of constraints. That's all. Project managers don't do anything but present a series of decisions. Project management is very much like text messaging, in that if you text to your mate about something, you will just end up asking each other a series of questions forever till one of you gets pissed off and picks the phone up and rings them. And you all do this, I know that you all do. Are you going out? Yes. Where are you? I'm going here. Right. Yes. Question mark. What time will you be? Question.
I don't know, I picked the phone straight off.
Well, that's it. That's clearly not a project manager. All we're doing is facilitating decision making. I didn't understand the client constraint about not installing a 1970s avocado bathroom suite. What you didn't see was the sink.
Okay.
I got a great price on the gold taps, they're beautiful. Projects tend to fail. We'll get back to the serious nature of project management. Projects fail when the management of complexity fails. Complexity. Decisions versus complexity. This is everything that we do in a built environment. We make decisions in a complex environment. That's what I really want to expand upon today. You will have noted I've managed to get 10 slides into this. And I've not talked about BIM yet. So that's probably tells you the nature of where I'm going. Part of my role at Turner and Townsend is to try and make sense of BIM, to try and make sense of modelling, and to try and get that into our processes. And this is our standard project management process, which is a flow of definition, decisions and delivery. All of our processes are based around this. The add process, assess, develop, deliver, or attention deficit disorder, depending on which way you want to define that. We tend to use the former one when we make formal applications for work. Bottom one, going down one, our service delivery model. The preparation phase, the design phase that's carried out by others that we monitor and control. Pre-contract phase, where we put things together, get them out to the marketplace. Construction, where we'll monitor again and deliver the client's asset. And then what we do in use. And this actually parallels quite well with the new REBA stages, which you're probably all familiar with, the 0 to 7 stages. We have control that goes right through. We have a set of methodologies of controlling. We do data drops, we do COBie. And I've tried to map it towards the AIA levels of development, or detail, or determination, depending on which book you pick up on what day, to try and make a bit more sense about it for project managers who are simple creatures and don't like the idea of digital stuff. Project management deliverables, well, we base all of our processes around this, and there's a similar one for cost management as well, similar one for our management consultancy. Any project management process is a workflow. Don't be fooled, REBA is not a design process. The REBA stages and the REBA process has bugger all to do with design. It's a project management workflow for architects to use. That's all it is, and it matches, it's the same as ours. It does the same things on the tin. Project management deliverables are twofold in a BIM project. Information management is the key one. That's again what I'm going to try and expand on. Information management and managing constraint envelope of the project. Have any of you come across the term constraint envelope?
Project envelope.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that time cost quality, or the 5 if you're in a Prince environment or whatever.
Are you going into knowledge management as well, which is information?
Not massively. I'll explain why.
Yeah.
There's a very distinct break
Yeah,
amongst
so
all of that.
it's-
Yeah, definitely. In effect, we manage risk and maintain value. That's all a project manager does, and that's all a QS does actually, is manage risk and maintain value. That's what we do for our clients. The information that's produced supports the decisions made and the path taken to keep on this road at every stage. We exercise control. We've got a control bar there through procedures and process, but all that is an operating framework. All it does is gives us something to frame the decisions around, and also to cover our backsides when the decisions go wrong. So I can hold up a piece of paper to the client and say, oh, actually last month I told you that was going to be 25 million quid, but you told me it was going to be 12. Yeah, I told you it was going to be 12 6 months ago, before you redefined all the scope, which I've also recorded in this process. So again, it's about not only helping the client to make decisions, but also recording why they've made them and what they're making them for. Again, project management is a lot of library keeping. That's a good one if you want to wind a project management consultant. Just tell them they're a librarian. Basically, that's what they do. They just file information and write things down. In amongst all of this, I think I mentioned, we've got our data drops, plain language questioning, those kind of things. These are approaches which we take to help define projects. All that is, when you talk about things like COBE, data drops, plain language questions, levels of determination, levels of detail, levels of design, all that BIM information, it's just supporting information that needs to be managed at the manifold of the project. It's just stuff coming in, it needs to be managed, and it needs to be shuttled back out again to who needs to make that decision in a format that they can digest easily. Typically, I know it's quite a tight slide, but I'll give David a copy of this so you can put it up on Blackboard for you to have a look at. This is our standard delivery matrix of every service that we provide, or everything that we do. For full program delivery, we're fully integrated by multiple consultants or contracting organisations. BIM affects every one of these work streams in some way. There isn't a single one of these work streams that isn't changed by the concept of information modelling. Whether that be asset information modelling, whether that be a runway at Heathrow Terminal, whatever, whether that be a substation, whether it's the M5, doesn't matter. Every one of those gets impacted. Every work stream and activity we create, every work stream activity we do as professionals creates decisions and outcomes. Design management is a key one there. Everything that you do is about creating another outcome from a decision, or a decision to be made. The options you put forward in design management are all about that. Project management is about framing that and making that work. Project management processes frame that in a completely linear way, as does the REBA process. Linear track, we're heading down this way, develop it, make decisions, hand it over. Walk away from it if you're lucky, get stuck with it if you're not. Every conscious human action is preceded by a decision. I don't read my slides very often, but that's an important one to read out. If you read Crotty's book about, I can't remember what the title is, the impact of building information modelling, I think it's called, he goes into this in quite a lot of depth, and I'll try and explain why he goes into it in quite a lot of depth. The scientific method that you'd use in, that Brian Cox would stand and bang on about when he talks about stars and things, direct observation, recording observations around us, leads to the recording of data. If I move a chair, we can record its movement, we can gather data about why the chair has moved, where it's moved, how it's been moved, all that kind of thing. We then create information from data by applying rules to it. Project management and information management, a lot of that is around applying rules to raw data. If you took a building information model apart, if you did the straight output from Revit and looked in the database, it's just a bundle of numbers, ASCII codes, all that kind of geometry, senseless. By applying the Revit API, we apply structure to the raw data that creates the information that we interrogate by looking at the screen. Effectively, by using information management and using information management tools in a project management environment, we're supposed to make decisions easier. We're supposed to make it easier to use that data. If you're in a car and you're speeding along, you can look out the window and kind of think, I might be doing about 40 miles an hour. The speedometer is there to tell you, to make that information of things going past easier to use rather than counting the distance between the lampposts and trying to work it out in your head. All BIM is translation from raw data to information via tacit interpretation of knowledge. That's where the gap of knowledge management comes in. How does that work then?
Network commitments and stuff.
Exactly. I'll show you how it works. There's a bit of cheery music on here, but I can't really know. Interesting. Somebody in the room might have seen this model before. We can actually use a simple model to simulate that. Thinking back to that clip, the second guy had information about alternatives and constraints that the first one didn't have, which allowed him to stand, laugh and point. He had a lot more information about what was going to happen. This allowed him to make a better decision than the first guy. Again, we might say through BIM we can simulate, which allows us to make a better decision than the first guy who can't. We do the same in risk and value workshops and things in our project management processes. Time and time again, the industry makes the same errors. We don't capture learning very well, and this is the point that was made earlier around tacit knowledge and knowledge share and knowledge transfer from information. Gann and Salter talk about broken feedback loops in construction, the nature of the production system we employ. This all goes back to industry fragmentation and the idea of project management of trying to actually get all of this to work in a single direction. Given complexity of supplier networks, we see why we end up hanging from the ledge over and over again. But if you look at it really simply, the information, the inputs that we get to allow us to make the decision, tell us about our alternatives. Think back to the simple model of the guy jumping off. We have some constraints. In a project management scenario, there's constraints there. Time, cost, quality, safety, whatever you want to, the legal constraints and the practical constraints of delivering a building. We know what we can do. We have resources. I should get him to talk through this model. It's his model. Decider, the person making the decision, the actual decision mechanism is a combination of those three, and the output is what we've actually decided. And project management is all about facilitating that decision. Again, we don't make the decision, we just merely facilitate it. We help people to get to the choice. Whoa, lots of words. This was won by Michael Kavanagh. Again, this is a challenge to you guys. I'm not going to talk too much through this one because we're now well off in project management theory. When you actually talk about things like critical chain project management, we define projects, and if you think about the REBA stages, everything that you see, even our stages at T&T, they're all linear, they're all straight line. But there's so many variables and so much complexity in a project. Why do we actually try and show them in a straight line? Why do we show it as a process? If you're familiar with the BIM design process, you'll see that it doesn't actually develop the same way, the neat little LODs across the bottom. It doesn't develop like that. It develops in a chaotic manner in multiple ways and comes together at different times. We pretend that what we do is that predictable, defined and fixed, but in reality, the chaos doesn't allow us to do that. Although we can simulate it first. So that's an interesting challenge with BIM. Decision making needs to be flexible and take on board information. All construction is a constant chain of decisions towards an outcome. Any of you guys working in the industry at the moment? You're all part-time? Are you working? Or how many times?
I'm only part-time.
You're the only part-time.
I do freelance.
Fair enough. How many times have you been waiting for somebody else's decision?
A daily occurrence.
It's a minute ago, isn't it?
And every decision that you're not making because you're waiting for information of somebody else's decision is impacting somebody else's decision. And when we have that linear chain, actually what's happening is that those decisions are influencing different parts at different times. You might still be waiting for a choice here that influenced something fundamental at the start, but you've got to there and then you're going to take that back a step. And then that impacts that, which we try and put a straight line on it, but you can't. And if you mix into this all these decisions that have to be made in this project management framework, need to be recorded, dealt with, blah, 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 blah. Don't talk about the quality of a decision. Now, if you think back to the guy jumping off the thing, he didn't make a very high quality decision, did he? In fact, his decision got pretty low quality. Two distinct variables in the successful outcome of a decision that you make. Quality of the information and the quality of judgment that you apply to it. Information is the most important external input to human decision making and all conscious activity, including construction. Because construction is a conscious activity, it's not like breathing. Cam, if you look online at Cam's work in 2005, he did a PhD thesis around this, talks around this whole idea of information. The mindset of the decision maker at the point of making the decision is crucial. And part of the reason why you're not getting information, not getting decisions made on time, is because of the mindset of the decision maker. Because they're having to weigh up all of the information that they've got in order to make that decision. You combine information and judgment in complex scenarios. Incidentally, you'll notice I haven't mentioned BIM much yet. That's a conscious decision by me. I'll come into that. Crotty talks about the most important input of decision making, the psychological level. That idea where you're working on a project and you can't get the client to make a decision. Almost every area of procurement, construction and operation of built assets requires huge amounts of conscious, deliberate decision making. Massive amounts. Every day is another decision. Every line that you draw is a decision of where that's going and why it's doing it. If we take our drawing-based information, it's of low quality. Take low drawings, they're really low quality, aren't they? I mean, it's 2D representations of something that is, is tangible and real. Information supports decision making. If your information that you work from is low quality, it doesn't support good decision making. Because what changes when we make decisions using low quality information is the amount of judgment that we have to use. The lower the quality of information, the higher the amount of judgment you have to make in order to make the decision. A very simple example, if you're in the pub and you're trying to decide to drink something that you've never drank before, that's a much harder decision than choosing from a variety of drinks that you know what they taste like. You have more information and therefore you need to use less judgment. When applied to the complexity of a construction project, higher levels of judgment are a really erratic human attribute to apply to a project. The less usable information you have, the more judgment you're making, the more erratic the decisions are, the more difficult it is to get to a successful outcome. Often, again getting back to your conundrum, the decision maker that you're asking for a decision from isn't equipped to apply the level of judgment. See, clients not equipped, they're not a construction person. You ask them, should I have what decibel rating do you want the wall? Bloody no, I pay you, I don't make decisions. Well, if you use this one, you'll probably hear something, but we've done a bit of a calc that says that if you use this one, you definitely will. Well, what should I do? I can't tell you what to do, I'm just giving you a bag. And this is the critical thing between the professional, the designers, QSs, project managers. Getting back to my first point, we only advise and help and steer. We're still allowing judgment to rule the day. When a client can't make the decision gets delayed because they go and find somebody else, or they start forming steering groups and committees to make decisions because they don't feel confident about making that choice. When decisions get delayed, they go the wrong way, projects fail. The primary reason for projects failing is down to communication and a lack of conscious, high-quality decision making. There's a BIM. He's actually going to talk about one. Yeah. Information from a model is infinitely better than traditional information. We know this. That's London Bridge Quarter. TNT are currently working on that. You see the tube lines underneath it, and sitting above that's that big pointy thing in London. Shard sits above that. That's the base for the shard. And you can see all of the stuff underneath, all of these nice piles, and the tube lines that run underneath the London Bridge Station, and the fact it's built on the London Bridge Station, and all of these things which are to do with Thames Water and all the other services are in there. And how deep we have to dig in the ground. Requires a much lower level of information, a lot lower level of judgment to interpret that than it does if I showed you a section through it. Or, I did a cut, so it's just a simple 2D section through it, or I showed you, if I came in here with all of the design information and showed you the racks and racks of 2D construction drawings. There you go, figure out what that looks like. It's really hard. Trust me, it's really hard. This requires a much lower level of judgment to interpret. To you, the decision maker, if I'm asking you, do you think those piles are too close to the lines there? The data has better structure. Decision maker can understand it. London Underground Limited can look at that and go, yeah, I'm happy with that, I'm comfortable. You're not going to punch through the top of my tunnel and see what you're doing. Why do you think architects spend all of that time and effort making visualizations? Why do you think they spend all that time and all that money in 3D Max, rendering things overnight, polishing the turd of information, bending other people's thinking and decision making through presenting sanitized versions of the truth? Again, the architect will kill me when he watches this on video. But that's what you do.
Flyshack's a visualization artist as well.
Well, there you go. Oh. But your entire role is to present information in a way that the client can understand and interpret, and quite often that client is, say, the planning authority. And you're not going to present it exactly how it looks. You're going to present it with the, you know, if it's aspirational, it's going to have a Porsche outside, it's going to have neat people wandering outside all in business suits. You don't go onto Revit City or whatever and download the model of the Chava in the hoodie to put outside your new.
Very appropriate for a shot.
Well, yeah. But we present information in a way that's far superior, so the level of judgment in making a decision is lower. And in some cases, we influence the level of judgment through the visualization process. We're selling something that is different. The level of judgment required in making a decision in a BIM environment is much lower. Much more can be automated in the workflow. Hallelujah, automate all the things. I'm all about automation. Fewer decisions should go wrong because I've got BIM. Fantastic. Hardly any project should fail. All this information is wonderful. Happy days, get more BIM in. Lots of BIM. Of all the BIM in the world, clients come up to me all the time. I want BIM. What do you want it for? Don't know, want BIM's great. That's actually really true. That's the attitude. Everybody wins. Angela Brady gets her dream, the president of REBA, but the architects retake the lead. I'm not really sad on architects, by the way. Architects retake the lead on projects. I'm able to spend more time watching Jeremy Kyle in my pants and shouting at the television because I'm an unemployed project manager. Fantastic. I'll take my redundancy. I'll go and do something else. There's a catch though, isn't there? There's always a catch. And there's a reason why I'm not going to be unemployed anytime soon. Any ideas what you think the catch is?
Compromises.
Sorry?
It's, well, we've had a few stories, and basically what's come through for the BIM stories is the fact that it's complacency and relying on automation.
Yeah, there's elements of that. There are elements of reliance on the automation and the interpretation of that.
Yeah.
And that's caused problems since time immemorial.
It was, yeah, because you can't model what is models, or what is, and on the BIM model it is actually, there's no fireproofing, you need tolerances for that.
Yeah, so the information that you're getting presented doesn't necessarily aid the decision-making process. What else is happening? If I automate all the things, and I'm making all the decisions, all these decisions, I make hundreds of decisions. What's the difference between a client's decision-making processes and a project management decision-making process in a BIM environment versus a 2D, fairly simple, you do me some nice pictures, you guys do me some nice plans and elevations. I've got a nice little stage D pack, it's about that big, of A3 drawings. What's the difference if I give you a BIM?
It's one final.
Partly. It's a thing called decision density. And this is why I'm confident that I'm not going to end up watching Jeremy Kyle in my pants anytime soon as project manager. BIM does not reduce the amount of decisions that need to be made on a project. It doesn't change the amount of, it doesn't actually reduce the amount, it does change. It doesn't actually reduce the amount of decisions that need to be made. And nor does it change the frame in which I have to make them and the timescales which I have to do. Even if the quality of information increases dramatically, I still have to make the same decisions as a client. And it still has to be enabled that those decisions get made. And the human scaling of information becomes quite important at this point. In fact, you could say the opposite is true. Richer information usually leads to a greater number of decisions being made. I'm no longer saying, I'd like some windows on the front of Wyn Jones. I'm now saying, do you want 230 lux or 227 lux? Do you need the room to be a temperate temperature, or do you need it to be 24.7 degrees or 24.9 degrees? Because I can simulate that. And if you're going to, do you want to reduce your electricity bills by maybe making a bit of a change to a solar panel on the roof, and we could move that by a degree? And these floor finishes, these are going to wear out in 10 years, but I can give you the option to get one that does 12. But it's going to cost £5 more per square metre. And also the carbon, I need you to make a decision around the carbon because I've simulated that, and you've got a really high carbon profile in this building, well known. Before, when we had a nice stage D report, client rocks up. Yeah, like, look at that, looks nice. The planner's happy, yeah, planners have queried the roof tiles. I'll just change them out a bit, yeah. Can I get everybody in there? Yeah. Yeah, and that's 34 million? Yeah, that's within budget, go for it. Now, I present them with all of the decisions under the bloody sun. Because I can. And how hard is it to get them to make a choice now? So you present them with tons of information and hundreds more decisions to make, and you get analysis paralysis. The whole job just grinds to a halt. Stakeholder management and gateway processes become far more important. Trying to get everybody bought in, trying to get all those decisions made, because there's so many more now. If I have a BIM of this building, I can show individual lecturers exactly what their teaching environment's going to look like. On the one hand, fantastic. On the other hand, bloody dangerous.
So would you say there's an appetite for decisions which increases the more you get the opportunity?
Yeah, the more information you give, the more able you are to make swift decisions, or make decisions, the more decisions you're going to want to make. It's like being given a menu in a restaurant that has thousands of options on it. It takes you longer to decide. Information is richer, yes. We've established that in a BIM we've got a lot more information, a lot more to do. But the ability to make decisions hasn't changed, has it? The client still, the judgment aspect, imagination, extrapolation of concept, forming the envelope of decision doesn't change. The client still is the same client. They've still got the same level of knowledge about what we do as they did before. We just given them we start giving them bloody dashboards and all this crap. All that decision-making envelope and that judgment that needs to be applied doesn't change. BIM doesn't replace this. In fact, it can actually cause more problem. Still needs managing. Still need to manage that envelope of change. All those decisions recorded, chased, reported, enacted. I don't get to watch Jeremy Kyle, do I? It's not likely the architect's going to be doing that. Running around chasing everybody up for every last mortal decision and making sure it's recorded and minuted. Time aspect is still critical in a building project, as are all those constraints. I can make much better decisions because I can use less judgment to make them because I've got richer information. But I still have to make lots of them in the right sequence timelessly, which is the whole idea of the change vehicle of project management. Getting people to make the right decisions at the right times in the project to make it happen. What I've just done though, is I've just taken all the decisions and squared them. Because there's so many more decisions to make now. Dan Stein, in '97, talked about a thing called intelligence density. And that's the amount of useful decision support information a decision maker gets from using a system for a certain amount of time. Now you guys all use BIM tools to various degrees of success. A lot about information density or intelligence density at this point is how much information, if you need to get to find out something, how quickly and easily can you do it and then make a decision around it? That's what he's talking about here. If you take intelligence density and talk about it as the amount of time taken to get to the essence of the underlying data, that information management piece. And you can do that, you can calculate that using utility. There's mathematical ways of doing that, which Professor Greenwood's much better at than I am. And these come from decision theory and game theory, which again are pretty common, well written about, well researched academic concepts. Lappin and Whistler talk about this utility concept quite a lot in the 2002 papers. Those utiles, the utility of that, express the true worth of information. We can actually find out what the utility of an information is by looking at the decision-making power that we found out, dividing that by the amount of time it takes us to get there. I can give you an example of this. I'm working on oil and gas projects at the moment, and we interrogate an Aviva model, for a large oil platform. And it can take up to 4 weeks to format the data. to get it into a place where you can extract all of the information you need from it. If you've ever fiddled about in the back of a Revit API and looked at the complex database structure, how many times have you been sent a model where the actual information that you want has either been stripped out of it or isn't in there, and then you have to scrabble around to try and fill it all back in again before you can get useful information out. This is what we're talking about, the information utility of the model. It's great having a model with all this data in it, but is it actually usable? Does my client, who has a very limited knowledge of the industry, is it any easier for them to interpret than it was before when you gave them a 2D drawing? Or when you give them a simple schedule? Does the density, does that utility of the information increase? It does for us as contractors or consultants. Doesn't necessarily for someone who's never seen a building before. Example. This is a BIM Academy slide. Just a few bits of it. People will kill me.
I'll not tell him.
It's a birthing room. That's fairly obvious. It's got birthing stuff in it. Maybe less obvious to the gentleman in the room than it is to the ladies that it's a birthing room, but hey ho. We just think there's something to wash my feet in.
Thought it was a bathroom.
I thought it was a bathroom.
There you go, you see, straight away. Which indicates where you were when all this was going on.
Yeah.
Could you make decisions if you were a midwife based upon, or a hospital consultant based upon this information?
No.
Why?
Because those are just items. There's no rationale behind
What could you decide from that model?
with space involved. I mean, I'm assuming you're thinking that there's going to be another wall and those walls have been removed.
Yeah,
for
it's
different
a
purposes.
pod. It's removed for clarity to show that that's a zone, so there's walls around it. But
Okay.
if I'm the hospital consultant and I'm rocking up and I need to make people give birth in there, however that's done. I'm not entirely naive to that sort of thing, but yes, we'll go with that later. Could you tell me? Yeah, that room's great.
No.
You could look at it and you could say what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
You could make a judgment on the size and spatial aspects, the usability or practicality of the room. Yeah, you could probably make quite a few.
You can make some quite reasonable decisions based upon that information.
They're all assumptions on.
Yeah, to a certain extent. This is real. It was actually a hospital project that Ryder undertook, and there was sign off based upon this model. Basin's the wrong height. Basin's 500. Should be 600 high for what it needs to be done. When you present the information as an isometric, even though it's a very rich amount of information, the basic information about how high that basin is compared to how high I am when I'm trying to negotiate baby, placenta, blood, guts, stuff. That's wrong.
But the
You can't tell.
information's still there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
If
Exactly
you
the
gave them
point.
that model, they
Yeah.
would be able to find that information out.
How long would it take a hospital consultant to find that out?
If someone was driving it for them, not very long, but yeah, if you had
On
to
their
go
own.
with them and let them
On their own, if you gave it to them and said, can you sign that off, please?
Yeah. How long is a piece of string?
Exactly. The intelligence density of this, as a concept, as a drawing, as a BIM object, if we could call it that, a model, is both extremely high and exceptionally low. Because we require more than just that basic graphical information to make a non-judgment decision. You can look at that and think to yourself with reasonable judgment, oh yeah, I can see all the things are there, as you pointed out, all the things are in the room. They're all arranged how I would want them. There's chairs there for spectators or whatever. There's stuff there, but without understanding that relative to that has no scale, no human scale to it. So to make a decision on it, you can make a decision on 90% of things, but you couldn't on 10. And this is the whole idea of getting people to make decisions, but providing them with the right information. In that case, a text schedule would probably have been better, because they could recognise quite quickly that it's the wrong height, because they know what height they needed it to be. Or they might go, oh, it says 500mm here. Is that right? Or however high it was.
And I think clinicians would do that without it even realising what 500mm was, because they spot the figure because they've done it before.
Correct.
They've seen these schedules before.
Yeah.
even though they're not in the field of construction.
So my point with this
Really
is,
interesting.
yeah, we're trying to get them to make a decision. And we're giving them what seems to be extremely rich information to make that decision from. But they can't make a valid decision from it, even though they think they're using minimal judgment. It's all about the utility of the information we produce. And for a project manager, that's really important to me, that my client can make the decision correctly. And you guys as design managers or whatever role and discipline you are, that's the key thing that you're doing. Utility is low with regard to the basin, but extremely high to the layout of the space. That leads me to a very critical linkage, and the main reason why I'm here to talk to you today, 54 minutes into it. I haven't got long to go, by the way. You'd be pleased to know. PAS 1192 has just come out. You'll have all seen this because you're all dead keen and know about BIM and stuff. As project managers now, and as design managers or any part of the construction industry now, we have an important thing to do that we never used to have to do. We now have to link information. Not only do we have to plan the project, not only do we have to facilitate decisions, not only do we have to record what's going on, we have to plan the information management as well. Intelligence density is relatively high in a non-BIM project, but its utility is very low. In a BIM project, the intelligence density is relatively low. Sorry, relatively high, but its utility is the other way. It's that seesaw of decision making. We have to manage the process so that intelligence density is high with a high utility. All the information that's needed to make the decisions and make them smoothly, but make it easy. It's the difference on your iPhone when you click the little thing and you switch it between the stupid little graphic of the battery life and the percentage. What you're doing is you're switching the information density. You're looking at that and you're changing it from a graphic that is meaningless to a percentage that you can understand. And you can glance at and think, oh, I'm screwed. Because it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in a nightclub, I can't find my mates now, it's in the red. That's the difference. And now as project managers and as design managers, we now have to manage all of that as well for our clients. We didn't have to before, we just gave them simple things to do. Now we have to manage the information density and the utility of the information. In most BIM projects, a key function of BIM execution plan, information management, information flow and the data exchange and all that is a key function of the BIM execution plan. And you couple that with a project execution plan. Rightly, in all of these documents, the emphasis on exchange of data and protocol as the primary drivers are technological around interoperability. You all know that. You all know how hard it is to get something out of Vectorworks and get it into something else or whatever, whichever way around you're doing it. That's what PAS 1192 does. But does it help us to make decisions? Does all of this information flying around actually help our client to make a meaningful decision? The OGC Common Causes of Project Failure, which is a standard document for all project managers to look at and laugh at and live the experience of every day. Every one of these failure points, and it's worth downloading it and reading it. I'll get a copy put on Blackboard for you. It's dead simple. It's a little leaflet. Discontinue now because the OGC doesn't exist, but it does crystallise quite well. Every one of these things can be attributed to either poor information definition, poor communication, or lack of effective decision making within a project team by the people who have to make decisions. BIM can help us to improve this, but only if we plan how we're going to handle the information density, not just how we bother the electrons when we move shuttle things around. Parting shot before we end the discussion. In a construction project management, given our past artisan history and linear processes, how we've always worked, temptation and tradition, and you guys will have all experienced this, is to let each team act on its own, do whatever the hell it wants, with some integrating activity at the end to glue it together. And we hope that approach will work. And that's how we've done it since before the Victorian times. Stonehenge was built on this principle of trying to hang it all together at the end once somebody had a bit of a concept and idea that was drawn on the cave wall. Architects, contractors, engineers, surveyors all beavering away in silos, then crashing the job together on the site. BIM doesn't work like glue in that way. It's not that kind of glue. Not the approach I would recommend from a project management standpoint. Approaches to this information transfer and this utility and these decision makers have to be deliberate and planned. BIM deliverables are too high in terms of information density to be able to just crash it all together at the end. You'll get too many clashes, too many outputs, too many wrong simulation things happening. And the ultimate simulation of the building is when you build the real one and it doesn't work. That's the ultimate simulation. In a BIM project, we have to plan from the start to cope with conflicting demands. If we attempt to federate our models using glue without adequate protocols, we will fail. And those protocols aren't just digital protocols. These are decision protocols as well. There's no point in federating 3 badly judged models together to make one badly judged federated model, even if it comes up with no clashes. It's probably still not buildable, and it probably won't do what you need it to do. So there's that fundamental juxtaposition of getting it right to build it, but also making the decisions to make sure you get the right asset at the end. BIM is more of an epoxy resin than a superglue. It takes a while to set, and it needs a catalyst. It doesn't just, at the end, clag, there you go, there's your BIM. Crack on, build it. Doesn't work like that. Or crack on, manage it. Again, doesn't work like that. Project teams should be glue factories, constantly generating glue that is successful decisions, rather than trying to assemble the broken bits at the end. Get the decisions right all the way through with the right information at every stage, rather than trying to pick up the pieces at the end and make them, clag them together. Successful project outcomes require the right decisions at every stage, not just the stage just before you hand it over the fence to the contractor. I believe it's called novation, is the way that we normally get away with not making the right decisions. Without the ability for the client to make the right decisions, the clients address complex projects by their gut feel. Information silos cause this. When you address a project by its gut feel, you might get it right through luck. 99 times out of 10, 99 times out of 10, see, exactly wrong information, 9 times out of 100, you'll get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, you've let judgment win over information. That's not project management. That's trusting to luck. Information and data will always win over luck. Every time. Ask any bookie. They don't use luck. They don't talk about luck. John McCrick never talks about luck. They talk about data, they talk about analysis, and they talk about determining the odds through knowledge. They do it through studying the outcomes and getting to the right decision. Information and project management, should they be luck rather than judgment? Even the bookies don't think like that. I'll leave you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. So,
yes, questions?
Question time.
I'll sit down.
yeah, have a seat.
Can I kick us off?
Yes, of course you can.
Good, I'm interested to know where Turner and Townsend are on with their journey at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly interested to know how the transition from scale rules with 2D paper drawings to using a BIM model, how that transition was tackled in terms of technology and culture and training.
It's still being tackled.
Okay.
We have a variety of different approaches to it, depending on which operating division you're looking at. For example, Turner and Townsend Energy may approach it very differently to property or to infrastructure, because they're all working with different assets and different models derived from those assets. I think we're still a system in transition. We have pockets of excellence, and I'm being very candid here, we have pockets of excellence, but we have a general approach to it. We're currently rolling out a lot of initiatives in terms of bringing basic knowledge up throughout the company. When you've got a company of 2,850 staff worldwide, not only are you fighting with the idea of upskilling and training 2,850 people, you've got a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ethnic approaches across different countries even, different degrees of maturity with the clients that we work with, different degrees of maturity with the information that we have to deal with. So as a large organisation, we're tackling it. Well, it's like taking the trenches basically in World War One. You do it inch by inch.
So is there a set in stone plan that you're trying to adhere to that's being pushed from the top down?
Yes.
And how's that getting received at the coalface by the people on the ground?
It's a difficult message. We find we have the usual set of, we have the usual issues around those who are technology adopters and are keen to adapt, those who don't see it as being their problem, those who just regard it as 3D design and don't think that it's going to affect them significantly, those who really see opportunity, the full spectrum of people. We have a global community practice. We were putting tools in place so that every cost manager, project manager, etc. at the desktop has the necessary tools in order for them to interface with a BIM. What we have to bear in mind is that we never manipulate information, we only ever receive it. So this idea of information utility is very important to us. What is very useful to somebody in an architecture practice isn't necessarily useful to us, but we're still expected to make decisions based upon it. So yeah, it's a long road and it's a lot of change and it's a big change management process. But the core deliverables of how we do our job day to day don't change. What changes is the information envelope that we work within. And it's getting people used to the idea that they're going to be seeing things in a different way. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if I answered the question there.
The difficulty
As
is
much as I think you could have done, I think it's a difficult one. But yeah, I think it has actually answered it in a way that I wasn't expecting. But yeah.
Hello, sir.
Is it internal or external? What is the harder part?
External. Changing the teams around us is the hardest part. It's actually getting an assembly of a team who understand each other. Traditionally in the industry, we've always been heavily siloed, and we've been siloed at every level, and that's been, if I'm being really candid, been reinforced by the professional bodies to a certain extent. RIBA don't like the idea of their architects socialising with us nasty surveyors who don't like the idea of the engineers being involved. I'm not sure what SIAT do. But it's all, there's an element of, because of the silos, because of the way that we've traditionally not worked together and we've attempted to crush it together at the end, the difficulty is that nobody quite understands what anybody else does properly. And when you're in an information-rich environment, and you're producing reams and reams of information, as opposed to just, here's my deliverables because the contract says I'll produce eight elevations and two sections and a planning set. At this point, I'll produce my cartoon set here. The engineer running on the same process, the QS producing their bits and pieces at every stage. We've never really had to understand the nuts and bolts of how each other work. Now we do. Internally, I can control the environment in which I work, in which my colleagues and peers work in. Externally, I have very little influence over others, but I still have to use their information. And I'm using it in a completely different format, in a completely different way to what I was before. So I'd say externally is the hardest part. Internally, I can control that, as far as my authority lets me, but yeah. Again, I don't know if that answers the question.
Clear. One thing I want to ask you is, what do you personally prefer, the older method or the new method?
New method.
New
I
method?
much prefer the idea of having rich information. I'm nearly 42, which means if you put me in a power cut, I could still do cut and shuffle. I get blank expressions around the room now.
I know that.
So I can still take paper information and I can still take a scale ruler and create a bill of quantities using bits of paper and cutting them up and making them and hand typing them. That's not a problem too. I don't particularly wish to do that. I don't think that that's, speaking as somebody who hasn't actually been a quantity surveyor for over 10 years, in Turner & Townsend we deliberately don't have the quantity surveyor title. We're cost managers and commercial managers. My time is better spent actually managing the client's risk and helping them to get to the right decisions, not quantifying things manually from drawing. So my view is that I would rather work in a new way, but then again, I'm always quite happy to try and embrace something that's new. I've got colleagues who would not be comfortable taking a model and extracting quantities from it and trying to work in that way. So personally, I prefer this way. Personally, I think the industry needs to move forward much faster than it is, but I appreciate, because of our fragmented nature, because of the nature of how we work together, that's tough. It's a tough gig. So yeah.
How long do you expect it to be mainstream?
I expect, if I'm talking about level 2 of adoption, not much further than the 2016 deadline. Mainstream, fully collaborative, I don't think will ever be entirely mainstream. There'll always be elements which can't, and the nature of our industry is so fragmented and striated in terms of levels of, going from the one-man bands who come and do a bit of pointing all the way through to your alphabetes, which are at the top end of the tree in terms of contract delivery. Mainstream for the majority of industry, I'd say within 10 years, but then we'll be looking to the next better solution then, I would hope. I wouldn't want to see us take the 40-year hiatus we've taken in terms of technology development, because we've never actually had to change, because we've always... I think Wolstenholme's correct when they said that you shouldn't waste a good crisis. And what the crisis in the, I hate using the expression credit crunch, but I'm going to use it, credit crunch. And I come from a bit of an academic background, so that's an unquantifiable statement, but downturn in the economy has led us to have to make fundamental changes to how we operate. Effectively, it's a catalyst. It's given the government the excuse to regulate us in a way that isn't true regulation. If you go back to the 1940s, Banwell and all those reports, they stated all the way through. I mean, Banwell was stating in, I think it was 1945, 4, something like that, 46, I think 46, that there is no industry where the design function is so divorced from the actual manufacture. Fast forward that to 50 years, fast forward that 60 years, it's still exactly the same. Exactly the same process. The only difference is now, instead of having a room full of people with drawing boards, I've got a room full of people with CAD machines who are drawing the same lines as they were drawing with a pen. We all made money. We all delivered buildings. Because we all stood together in our methodology, the clients didn't get any change. They didn't know any better. If you take a project, I mean, if I took a government project like the Procure 21, or if I'm building a new health centre, actually, the project duration is like that in terms of what Department of Health see, because they have a need to make a change in an area in health terms. They develop it, and they get to a point where they decide, actually, to do this, we need to get a new health centre. Then there's a bit about that big in the project programme, which is build a new health centre. And then there's outcomes for the next 40 years based upon that change catalyst. But that little piece in the middle is the bit that they regard as being the major problem because of the way we operate as an industry. The tiny part of their change programme we cause the issues about, because you don't want to go and speak to the construction people. I had this at Durham County Council. We were trying to decide, I was building schools for the future project officer at Durham County Council for 2.5 years, I seconded in there. And we were making the changes on the distribution of the schools in County Durham. And one of the things that we had to do was decide whether to build 2 new primary schools or not. And I had the County Treasurer say to me, how much will it cost me to build 2 new primary schools? And I say to him, primary school is about £1,600 a square metre. At which point the County Treasurer says to me, Dave, that's utterly useless. What does that mean? If you were buying a new house, you'd expect the builder to say it's going to cost me £185,000. You wouldn't expect to say £1,300 a square metre. How big is it? It's house sized. So I make this statement, and he says, oh, okay. I can't remember what number I said there. £1,600 a square metre I'll use. How big's a school? Okay, well, we'll times this out. Say £6 million for a small primary. Fine. It gets there. Right, so it's £6 million. So I've got to fix £6 million of the budget. Well, there's fees on that. How much is that? Well, that's 17%. Right, so I've got a £6 million plus 17%. Right, okay. Yeah, but there's risk profile as well, so there's contingency on that. How much is that? I don't know, 10%. So you're telling me that there's another 10% to be added on for stuff you don't understand. Well, yeah, that's pretty normal. 10 to 15% say. I mean, if you build it in East Durham and things get stolen, 20%. So you're telling me it's between 10 and 20%? Yeah. And he actually turned around and he said, so you're telling me that I have to sack 10 cleaners or 20 cleaners? And what? That profile, that risk profile, is the difference between I've got to let 10 members of staff go for the affordability gap, or 20 members of staff go. Are you telling me it's 10 or 20? And when we talk about making decisions and we talk about the richness of information, if I had a model and I could show them exactly what they were getting and I could quantify it with less risk, I wouldn't have to make 15 people redundant, I could only make 8 redundant. I know that sounds horrible, but it's a significant difference in somebody's life, and we're making decisions around things that affect somebody completely remote. And that's the difference I see with BIM. I've probably wandered completely off the original question.
Quite like how you associate the game theory, because Prof Greenwood, we talked about maxi, min and minimax.
Yeah, it's about that. You know, it's about an envelope of operation basically, and being able to make better decisions as to where I sit within that max min envelope. That actually equates in reality to real decisions that other people have to make around real things, and I hate to say it as a QS, but 99 times out of 100 it's the money. That's why I see the big difference in how our industry is behaving. The change will be in that we can give more certainty around outcomes. Greater certainty leads to less opportunity cost as such. When I worked at Tesco, I was a value manager at Tesco. That's seconded into places. I think my boss didn't like me. The most heinous crime was overestimating, not underestimating. They actually didn't mind so much if you undercooked the numbers, which sounds bonkers from a client point of view. But if you've got £1 billion a year portfolio of works like Tesco have, and you're building 60 stores, if each one of those stores is 3 or 4% over budget, and you don't find out until you actually get to final account, you could have built 61. That's the difference I see BIM making to our industry, and that's the difference in change that I see happening. And that's why it's so hard to get it through. And we're talking about that internal, external. Again, I've completely wandered off on a tangent, but that internal versus external. The good thing about BIM is it exposes every decision that has to be made. The bad thing about BIM is it exposes every decision.
Well, in a sense that it simplifies by understanding.
Yes, simplifies by understanding. Do you want? Are there? Okay. It simplifies through understanding.
Yeah.
But are there people in our industry who have a vested interest in you not understanding?
Yeah. So it comes down to mentality, isn't it?
And that's the culture. That's the culture shift. That's the change. The big change.
Can I ask some questions specific to Turner and Townsend?
You can, yes. Whether I can answer them or not
That's
within
all right.
the commercial envelope.
I'll ask you. Yeah.
Who do you work for, by the way?
Not McDonald.
Oh, there you